Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Progress DataDirect, Delphix, and DataVeil. I'm Stephen Fegg, Director at Database Trends and Applications and Unisphere Research. I will be your host for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Data Management Best Practices for the Hybrid Cloud. Before we begin, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible, but if yours is not selected during the show, you will receive an email response. Plus, all viewers today will be entered for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card just for participating. Now, to introduce our speakers for today, we have Aaron Berg, Senior Solutions Engineer, and Todd Wright, Senior Product Marketing Manager. Both come from Progress DataDirect. We also have Kobe Corsa, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Delphix, and Jeff Duncan, Global Practice Leader for SQL Server at DataVeil. At this point, I'm going to pass the event over to Aaron and Todd to get us started.
Hello to everyone on the webcast today. My name is Todd Wright from Progress DataDirect within the role of Product Marketing. Today I'm going to be talking about DataDirect's data drivers, connectors, and in particular what is known as the hybrid data pipeline. And to kick things off, let's talk about the state of things today. It's probably no surprise to anyone on this webcast. We're seeing an explosion in the amount of data that is being produced. From 2 zettabytes in 2010 to 64.2 in 2020, and a projected near tripling to 181 zettabytes in 2025. All of this is great news for organizations that depend on data to fuel their BI and analytics programs. As one thing that's been really proven over the years is that the more data feeding into these BI and analytics programs, well, this has a direct result in them being able to produce more insights and better predictions, and generally be more successful for organizations. But such as in life, where there is opportunity, there's also challenges. Recently, Aaron Berg here at Progress, who will be speaking after me, asked this question within an article he wrote. And I quote, "How many times a week does someone in your organization come knocking and say, 'Can I get access to the marketing/sales/production database?'" And Aaron further elaborated, users want to connect to data sources to build out dashboards or visualizations for a wide variety of corporate data analytics initiatives. Others are building internal applications which require the integration of these data sources. Regardless of what the request is, it takes time to complete and will pose security challenges in terms of managing and tracking what access has been granted and to whom. So while the challenge of managing the number of requests to the growing number of data sources users need has always been with us, and it is only growing, in this day and age, it's not good enough to simply access the data you need. It must also as well address the following concerns. Number one, security lapses that would cause internal vulnerabilities. Second, the ability to meet and define compliance standards across the organization. And third, accounting for the speed and scalability of internal systems. And it's really with this in mind, Progress DataDirect has created what is known as the hybrid data pipeline. Well, Progress DataDirect has been known for years for its robust connectivity to dozens of different data sources. With a hybrid data pipeline, Progress DataDirect takes this connectivity, as mentioned, even a step further while enabling, and as you'll see the three here, number one, identity management for your data sources that'll allow you to control data access from a single location. Number two, universal clients for all BI tools using ODBC, JDBC, and OData that eliminate the need to deploy and update numerous drivers. And third, operational visibility into data source utilization. This lets you see not only who has accessed the data, but what they have accessed. With Progress DataDirect's hybrid data pipeline, you can quickly share a data source, be it on an on-premise SQL server, a cloud data warehouse, Salesforce, or even a private REST API instantly using our easy-to-use web interface. And to continue, hybrid data pipeline also eliminates common roadblocks to data connectivity while ensuring trusted security. And this is done by really addressing security lapses that cause internal vulnerabilities. Number two, controlling access to sensitive data and the ability to comply with strict data privacy laws. And third and finally, being able to consistently apply corporate authentication models to any data source, regardless of native support. And to really give a real world example of this, I wanted to talk briefly about an organization called MHC. I'll actually read right from the slide here because it's a direct quote, and I think it's really powerful. MHC makes every effort to meet the strict data security standards our customers require. It is with this in mind, we have chosen Progress Hybrid Data Pipeline to work within our North Star Intelligent Content and Workflow Automation platform. The Progress HDP ability to securely connect customer on-premise ERP data from our software as a service platform will be key to ensuring security is still priority number one. And the reason I really wanted to read out this quote is because I think it really hits home what I was talking about 2 slides ago, in that, yeah, there's more data available to organizations than ever before. And this data has a direct result, as mentioned, on the success of analytics and BI programs. Essentially, more data equals better results. But it is not enough in this day and age to simply be able to do analytics efficiently, BI efficiently, without security in mind. And with hybrid data pipeline, you're able to get to all the data that you need in an easy fashion, but with also security in mind that not only meets compliance standards around the world, but also what your customers would expect of a software tool in this day and age. And with that said, I wanted to turn it over now to Aaron Berg, who will go a little bit deeper into what hybrid data pipeline is all about. And with that said, Aaron, I'll turn it over to you. And I thank everyone once again for joining this webcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. And thank you everyone for joining today. I wanted to give a brief overview of hybrid data pipeline so we all know what it is and what it does. So hybrid data pipeline is tend to call a lightweight data gateway used by a wide range of companies. It is installed on Linux. You install it either in the cloud, on-prem, wherever you choose, and it supports high availability, load balancing, things you would expect of an enterprise solution. It's administered through a very rich web UI as well as a set of management APIs. So everything inside of the product, and I think you'll probably hear more from Chris on this later, can be configured through these management APIs. This product has been around for about 6 years now, so pretty rich product here at Progress. Coming back out, a couple of the use cases that we see are how hybrid data pipeline really works kind of like a Swiss Army knife. I know I tend to overuse that metaphor, but it does a lot of different things to help companies share data in a timely and compliant manner, or even get access to data. So at Deltek, they're using it to securely share data. So they have data in their SaaS environment, maybe up top here, and they're using it to provide access so their customers can get to that data using the tools of their choice. So ODBC, JDBC, OData. So we do that by using HTTPS with our ODBC and JDBC connectors to securely access that over the internet. Nice thing here is you don't need to worry about any sort of VPNs or SSH tunnels. We also support multi-tenancy and IP whitelisting for security. And then we also have abilities to protect your backend data sources. So you can set up throttling to keep people from running long-running queries to really make sure no one's monopolizing any of the resources. Another common use case that we see is cloud to ground access. And this might be, say you have a SaaS hosted analytics tool and you need to access your customers' data on premises. Here we have a small agent, much like a OneDrive or a Dropbox agent, that can run behind the firewall at the remote site and provide access to the on-premises sources without needing that VPN, SSH tunnels, anything like that. Again, this is all outbound SSL, so no need to open any remote ports. It's very easy for the customers to install that small agent on Windows, and it provides access to all of the remote data sources, and then they can be accessed through the hybrid data pipeline. All that authentication is configured inside of the hybrid data pipeline to make it very easy for configuration. We hop back up a little bit here. From an architecture point of view, you're going to see that we have the hybrid data pipeline servers running behind a load balancer. These, like I said, can be in a single or multi-node cluster, and they're accessing those wide range of data sources that we support, including third-party JDBC drivers or even REST sources. We then consume that using the hybrid ODBC or JDBC drivers, or even OData, which is a REST API. I like to call it SQL over REST, and hybrid data pipeline makes it very easy to REST enable your data sources. We also do connect to cloud sources, just to point that out. So whether it be like Salesforce or Google Analytics or the REST sources I mentioned, and then that on-premises connector plays in as well to provide a full picture of everything you can connect to using hybrid data pipeline. From security point of view, everything is encrypted both at rest and in transit. So you can be confident that we're providing a modern, secure solution. We support LDAP authentication as well as an open framework to build your own authentication into hybrid data pipeline. And then for OData, we do support OpenID Connect. So a couple different options there to get access through the hybrid data pipeline to your data sources, and then the multi-tenancy and IP whitelisting, which I mentioned before. And just to bring up quickly some of the data sources we support, pretty wide range of everything from big data to cloud sources like Google BigQuery, to the traditional relational databases, whether it be Postgres or SQL Server, and then some of the other solutions like Dynamic CRM, Salesforce. So really pretty wide range of sources that can be configured. And then of course the ability to connect to REST APIs, which greatly expands that using our autonomous REST connector, and then being able to bring your own driver.
Thanks, Aaron. That was really great. Everyone, this is Todd Wright again from Product Marketing. I want to thank everyone once again for their time and taking a listen to what Progress DataDirect is all about, in particular, the hybrid data pipeline. If there's any questions as a follow-up to this webinar, please feel free to contact Progress. We'll be happy to take your calls or your messages, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you very much, Aaron and Todd. At this point, I'd like to introduce our next speaker today. Once again, Kobe Corsa, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Delphix.
Hello, and thanks for having me. Can you all hear me okay? So at Delphix, we focus on transforming application delivery across the multi-cloud and obviously across the hybrid cloud with DevOps test data management. Technology leaders often view test data management as somewhat tactical and perhaps believe it's a mature category of technology. However, a perfect storm is brewing with a number of factors pushing companies inexorably towards DevOps and CI/CD to dramatically slash time to market. And that's rapidly making TDM more strategically important than ever before. It's also exposing some gaping holes in current approaches, which simply cannot keep up with today's demand for continuous innovation. So I'd like to share some of our thoughts on DevOps, the cloud, and the future of test data management. Businesses seeking transformational change need to master app dev. That's the superpower, of course, that today's most admired companies possess. At a macro level, this transformation is motivated by what's happening across all markets globally. At Wager, you've seen a slide much like this one before. And of course, to compete and win in rapidly evolving markets today, we're all governed by the applications that enable our businesses. I'm sure we can all agree that what enterprises really want is fast, high quality, secure application delivery and a steady stream of reliable products and services to engage customers and achieve business goals. That is why all the companies along the bottom of this slide and thousands more like them are pouring millions of dollars into their app dev practices. HSBC, for example, has 30,000 developers in-house. JPMC have more technologists in-house than Twitter and Meta combined, and an annual IT budget of $12 billion. So why do you care about any of that? Well, increasingly, the CIO now leads business transformation, and their app dev leaders, perhaps some of you in the audience today, represent the tip of the spear when, driving toward digital first everything. And of course, the app dev teams that you lead, perhaps, and innovation teams, they're like, the Navy SEALs of today's digitally driven businesses. And success is measured by the three things you see here on the right-hand side of the slide. So application release speed, the quality of the software produced, and the associated level of compliance or security risk. And those three dimensions or goals frequently get in each other's way. They frequently stand in direct opposition to each other. You may have experienced prioritizing any one of these goals only to compromise another and being forced to make decisions that involve trade-offs between them. The question is, the burning question I should say is, why can't you have all three? So, these fundamental issues have in part fueled the DevOps movement, as I'm sure many of us are aware. And here's an interesting quote from Gene Kim, who spent a large part of his career studying high-performing DevOps teams. So the best at DevOps somehow managed to realize an improvement across all three dimensions. I'm being told there's a bit of noise, background noise coming from me, so I apologize. I'll try and minimize that. The cream of those enterprises have realized tantalizing results, releasing software 1,000 times faster, with multiple releases a day, while the rest do monthly, quarterly, or annual releases. Now, worryingly, just 5% of these other organizations that have invested heavily in DevOps, can provision data in under a day. I'll just pause for effect there. Only 5% of the others are able to provision data in under a day. That demands a rethink of how that essential ingredient for cloud migration, adoption, and automation to go faster in the cloud is managed. Now, of course, in addition to DevOps and CI/CD being the new speed standards and the need, of course, to move from high trust to zero trust with all data, applications that used to sit exclusively in traditional data centers are now rapidly moving to the cloud and across the multi-cloud, exacerbating the multi-generational data access challenges. Typically, for every production environment, there are between 7 and 9 non-production environments for dev, test, QA, staging, regulatory reporting, etc. Moving all of that is a heavyweight job. Companies struggle to sync on-prem data to the cloud to test migrated applications and de-risk the cutover, etc. And of course, remember, no one goes to the cloud to go slower, like we talked about at the beginning. So after adoption, an acute lack of data automation often hampers core hardening, the ongoing innovation in the cloud. Also, cloud magnifies privacy, compliance, and security risk. And all of this is accentuating the need to move from high trust to zero trust in all things data. This slide should make some of you smile. So DevOps core tenets include automating everything. We all know this. Today, servers, storage, networks, and even software have been automated. Companies like Chef, Ansible, Docker, Selenium, JMeter have brought cloud elasticity, economics, and velocity to software testing. It's like the industry has built a bullet train, but can only go as fast as the rickety old data caboose at the end. Data remains the last automation frontier, and it's growing exponentially in production applications, and it's increasingly complicated. You have schema changes, data type changes, volume changes, new transactions entered, etc. The other thing to bear in mind is, data also has a ton of risks. We've touched on this briefly, but this should bring it home. For example, personally identifiable information can create enormous company problems if breached during dev and test processes. Most companies leave data protection in development environments up to independent application teams. Invariably, they end up with a Swiss cheese-like approach to securing data in dev test, UAT, staging, etc. And all of this makes up 90% of the data footprint. A couple of years ago, T-Mobile CEO was on front page news when 50 million consumers' data was stolen from their dev test environments. Continuous access to high quality data is essential for fast releases, of course. But of course, a major data breach can decimate reputations and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So, again, remember, of course, the data caboose a couple of slides back. Again, today's data management, test data management, lacks the breadth, depth, and data automation to keep up with DevOps and CI/CD. Manual and asynchronous processes, stale, incomplete data, compliance and security gaps means they simply can't scale up to deliver high quality data-ready sandboxes at that pace. Delphix is the only API-first DevOps data platform that automates data security while rapidly deploying data to accelerate multiple strategic use cases, including cloud adoption and accelerated innovation in the multi-cloud. We can sync production data from all sources and apps to the cloud, then automate provisioning of virtual databases to rebuild all associated non-prod environments. This initial step can eliminate 90% of your data footprint and drive up infrastructure utilization by something like 10 times. We make data safe and ready for the multi-cloud by enabling continuous data compliance with zero trust across clouds. Of course, in that context, our comprehensive masking capability also preserves referential integrity and eases recovery from corruption, ransomware, etc., with a single solution. This means you can much more easily and quickly provision, clean up, integrate, and version data to migrate production workloads to the cloud faster and with greater confidence. You can also leverage our APIs to integrate with tool chains, automation servers like Jenkins, and platforms like HashiCorp, with whom we also have integrations. Finally, everywhere we're deployed, our virtualization technology consolidates data footprints, which generates hard savings when benefiting, of course, while benefiting the planet. Let's take a little deeper look, delve a little deeper. The platform non-disruptively ingests data from all applications and databases in near real time, like I talked about, and stores that data in an immutable time machine. This is the key to making data safe. Once in Delphix, we can provision data from any point in time for multiple dev, test, staging environments from a shared data footprint. So there's no need to move or copy data over and over. For example, we can make 10 copies of a 5 terabyte database in minutes, saving 50 terabytes and several days. We make data lighter, faster, and safer, even for systems integration testing, where precise syncing of disparate applications and data is critical. Finally, all our data features are driven by APIs, including data profiling and masking for compliance, of course. So you can integrate Delphix with, all of these, other solutions that we talked about earlier on, including Terraform, for example, to quickly stand up an environment with the right data, run a test, or make data available to a data scientist, and then reset or tear down the environment automatically. We'd be happy to share more later. So in the meantime, here's a great quote from Unisys and Cal State Universities, the largest universities group in the world, with 500,000 students and 16 billion in revenues. Cal State used Delphix to accelerate application development. When they first deployed the DevOps data platform, the modernization program they were on was behind schedule, very much behind schedule, with siloed legacy apps across 23 campuses and apps across campuses to rebuild. Data for TDM and CI/CD, of course, was critical. We deployed within 2 weeks and helped accelerate the modernization. We then helped accelerate their cloud migration to AWS by 30%. And finally, we integrated with their DevOps suite to drive 50% faster releases with all of the capabilities I've just described. So from modernization to migration to smaller, faster software releases, ultimately, it's all about, for them, it's all about enabling the, the mission to help students graduate. With our help, they're now using machine learning data from all those touch points to, of course, identify where students might drop off and drop out and do something about it. So that's one example. UKG, company you might have heard of, Ultimate Chronos Group, they use Delphix and our APIs to automate their testing environments fully. They've now moved from paying for 24/7 standing test environments on-prem to ephemeral test runs in the cloud. Now UKG deploys 1,700 test instances a day, I think. And Delphix automates the data delivery. The tests are done within 25 minutes and the environment is released. So UKG spin up environments, run complicated integration testing, and immediately tear down those environments. That's what's possible when you automate the entire development environment, including data, with Delphix. And this also reduces UKG's infrastructure costs and carbon footprint by 20 times. So on that note, I'm going to come to a rapid close. This slide is easily read by the audience rather than me talking through it. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Kobe. It's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker for today, Jeff Duncan, Global Practice Leader for SQL Server at DataVail.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. So at DataVail, our specialty has been database management and app services. We do have over 1,000 employees and are designed to easily handle 24/7 support coverage. I can also state that we have accomplished well over 1,000 database migrations to the cloud, and that's from my team alone. So I guarantee if I got the numbers from across all of DataVail, those numbers themselves will be exponentially higher. Like already mentioned, I'm Jeff Duncan. I'm a global practice lead for SQL Server. I've been working with SQL Server a little bit more than actually 25 years now, and also with team management. Today we're going to be talking about, of course, best practices for the hybrid cloud. So a hybrid cloud is a combination of a public cloud and a private cloud. Private cloud usually also equates to something that is on premises. And so we'll be talking about those best practices for hybrid cloud management. The first thing you got to do is actually know your environment. What data do you have and where does it reside? What talks to each other? What pulls data and pushes data to and from your public and private cloud? So you need to know these things from end to end. So first steps, we need to access your current workloads and identify which environments require the public cloud or a private cloud. So in case you have something that's highly confidential that needs strict monitoring, maybe a public cloud might not make the best sense for you and for your organization at this time. So you might need to deploy an on-premises setup while shifting some of your seasonal workloads to the public cloud. But so before jumping into a hybrid cloud strategy, you first need to ask yourself the following questions. So who's going to own these different workloads and work assignments? How essential are these assignments? And what about escalation? Who's going to get the call if something actually goes wrong? And when and where do these work assignments run? Where's the data going to reside if you push and pull data to and from different sections? And like I said, who's going to own it and who's going to be the escalation point if something does occur? Now, one of the most important things I think we're going to have to end up discussing, though, is actually security. So the most difficult thought is now that you have a combination of a public cloud and on-premises items, you have to keep all of it secure. And that introduces a ton of complexity. So because of these complexities, hybrid cloud makes it difficult to efficiently detect and remediate security threats. When a risk arises, does it affect the public cloud portion of your hybrid environment or the private components or possibly both? The answer is not always clear, which means an organization will need to commit time and effort to find a remedy. So in the public cloud, vendors themselves assume responsibility for securing physical access to your infrastructure. Hybrid clouds differ in that they include your local infrastructure, and so businesses they must secure this themselves. So to deploy and manage a hybrid cloud, a business can use the public cloud vendor framework such as like AWS Outposts, Azure Stack, Google Anthos, things like that. But for a hybrid cloud, you have other options as well, like maybe implementing like a generic control plane such as Kubernetes, or even building a custom control plane that can encompass both environments altogether. Each of these approaches comes with a unique set of security challenges. This makes it difficult to develop a standard set of security best practices that apply to every type of hybrid environment. So that brings us to multiple things that we really do need to consider. So first, ideally, IT teams learn about risks and threats as they emerge. Continuous audits can provide that real-time visibility. However, the challenge of continuous auditing in hybrid environments is that public cloud vendors' own tools don't really cooperate with on-premises systems. So a provider designs its tools to work only with its own public cloud services. So your IT teams may end up opting for a third-party monitoring and observability tool so they can actually get an end-to-end picture. Second, in hybrid clouds, public and private cloud resources or infrastructure interact constantly. So to mitigate security risks, those interactions should be limited to achieve operational goals. This is a practice that's actually known as least privilege. For example, look at services hosted on a public cloud. These services should allow communication only with on-premises infrastructure when it's necessary. Likewise, you should prevent data stored in the public cloud from being accessible by applications or services hosted in your private cloud, unless there's actually a good reason to do so. Now, third, enterprises that use hybrid clouds should follow the principle of zero trust. This means that new resources shouldn't interact with an environment until they are deemed legitimate and secure. So in the hybrid cloud, this means practices should be enforced like not allowing new local servers to join hybrid infrastructure until they've been thoroughly vetted. I've seen many times that a nice buttoned-down hybrid cloud with good security have a hole introduced when a new server was stood up inside the environment without having those same precautions placed on it that was enforced in your entire hybrid environment. Fourth, there are multiple options for encryption, but the understanding needs to be that the more encryption that you have in place, the more potential you have for slowness. So you need to evaluate, is encrypting my data at rest enough, or do you need to the complete transactions need to be encrypted from end to end? So the more encryption that you utilize, the slower the process is going to be. Next, we need to talk a little bit about possibly AI and automation. So it's important not to overstate the ability of AI to detect and resolve every security and automation issue. But automation and AI tools can be useful for helping to discover risks. For example, cloud data loss prevention tools can automatically discover some sensitive data. And this data may lurk within your hybrid environment in places that you wouldn't actually think to manually check. So you need to establish a uniform set of security standards and tools that you can apply across your hybrid environment. Standardization can lead to fewer oversights than when attempting to secure public and private components of your hybrid environment with different strategies. In practice, unified security management means the use of strategies that simplify tasks and operations, such as maybe applying a single identity and access management framework to the entire hybrid environment. All right. Last but really not least is your backup data. Data backups are critical to safeguard against attacks like ransomware. So you need to be sure to store backups separately from the hybrid environment. Resources that run in the hybrid cloud, they shouldn't be able to access your backups, no matter where they are based. So keeping them in the same place increases the risk that attackers who actually breach the environment can also destroy that backup data. Now, in this slide right here, I've actually included a link, and it says AWS, but it's not vendor specific. So if you're not an AWS vendor, if you actually use Azure and cloud, the information that's here, I think, is just as valuable, and I think you can implement some of the things that's actually there. So it's a really good article that teaches you a little bit about how to protect your data and what you should actually do to your backups. And again, like I said, so it's not AWS specific, but since you're not going to be able to click the link in my slide, if you Googled AWS ransomware mitigation preparation, it'll come up. As soon as the ad responses are at the top, it's one of the first results that are returned. And I encourage you to read and study that article. I think it actually has some really good information in it that I think could actually benefit you, whether you're in the hybrid cloud, public cloud, your local on-premises things as well. So in summary here, the best practices that I've stated right here and what we actually aim for at DataVeil are you need to be able to run continuous audits, make sure you implement least privilege, follow that zero trust principle, utilize but do not overutilize encryption. Otherwise, you could actually cripple your performance. Use automation processes when possible. Make sure you implement and protect your backup strategy and test your disaster recovery. All right, at this point, I'm going to be handing it back over to Stephen, and I think we're going to be able to have an answer and question session now.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jeff. We are going to dive into questions from our viewers at this point in time. So first question is for Aaron and Todd. Can hybrid data pipeline work with accessing data from our internal systems we developed and also work with Power BI, which we use?
Sure, I can take that. This is Aaron. Yeah, hybrid data pipeline has no problem connecting to internal systems that might be REST API based. So if you have a REST API that maybe returns JSON or XML data, we support a wide range of authentication types to those, as well as the pagination and whatnot. And we can then provide access through ODBC, which would be what generally you'd use with Power BI, or even OData, which is a standards-based REST API that Power BI supports. Or we also have JDBC as well, if you want to throw Tableau into that mix.
Thank you very much, Aaron. On to our next question. Kobe, this question is for you. Most of our new development is done in the cloud, but we also have some data sources on-prem. How do you implement TDM for this type of architecture?
Ooh, thanks for that one. Delphix was designed as a data fabric, so it doesn't matter whether data is on-prem, hybrid, cloud native, or multi-cloud. Sophisticated TDM needs are fully supported. So the real question here, I guess, is where does the testing occur? For example, if you test offshore, you'd configure Delphix for selective data distribution, which sews together dataset virtualization with the masking of those datasets to allow you to mask data continuously and then deliver a compliant data-ready dataset to an offshore test environment. Now, of course, anyone who's been doing things like, I don't know, SAP modernization for a multinational organization will understand the value of that. And, you know, this thing about safe harbor and not being able to share data for you know, going through all of the, I guess, aspects of modernizing an environment with the folks who are actually going to be doing the work. It's pretty tricky and can be very costly. Now, interestingly, the big advantage in crossing that boundary of Delphix is that in a, you know, in hybrid or multi cloud scenarios, the sync between the two engines that exist, perhaps, you know, on-prem and in the cloud, minimizes the data that crosses the boundary back and forth. And for hybrid cases with production in-house and dev testing the cloud, for example, you can eliminate the cloud egress tax when your data, for example, leaves Amazon. But to answer the question, and in, I guess, a bit more succinctly end, is the upshot is TDM needs to be high velocity wherever your data is, and Delphix fully supports all of those scenarios.
Thank you very much, Kobe. Jeff, next question is for you. How have hybrid cloud data management strategies changed in the last few years?
Thank you. So in the beginning with the cloud and the concepts, usually you were limited to only the vendor tools. And those vendor tools, like you said, they're not as friendly with on-premises items. So lately there have been a lot more third-party tools that come out that actually help you with your end-to-end management from beginning to end. So like I know I mentioned briefly Kubernetes, there's others and stuff as well that you can actually set up to actually help you manage items that are in your local on-premises, to help you with automation as well, and also with any cloud vendor, even if you have more than one. We have customers that actually have some items in Azure as well as AWS, and they've maybe have developed some custom items, but there are third-party tools now that you can actually manage all three.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Jeff. Todd and Aaron, we're moving back to you. Question is, does HDP work with Collibra to provide connectivity along with their governance capabilities?
Aaron, I know that we have a lot of, go for it.
Oh yeah, no, we work with a wide range of solutions. Basically, any solution that can integrate with ODBC or JDBC or OData would be able to take advantage of hybrid data pipelines capabilities to reach a wide range of data sources, or even using that on-premises connector to reach data behind a firewall. And I think I've seen this before with Collibra, and I believe they do support drop-in JDBC drivers. So that should work in that use case.
Understood. Thanks, Aaron. Kobe, our next question is for you. How do you handle masking for really large data sources? For example, over 1 billion rows.
Yeah, so Delphix is actually very good at this. We have a hyperscale compliance mode that will scale out and apply masking to a really large source in a very efficient manner. So rather than masking row by row, or as some people say, brute force, hyperscale masking breaks up masking jobs into chunks. So it will then elastically scale out multiple instances of Delphix to mask those chunks simultaneously. And this multi-threaded approach means we can address really large workloads very quickly. It's very helpful when trying to mask tens of terabytes of, or perhaps over 1 billion rows, for example, for a data warehouse used for BI reporting. And we also have something called Data Control Tower, which, as you know, it implies, is really that control point that allows you to not just manage that sort of thing, but manage your API, the use of your APIs as well across the multiple engines that you're taking advantage of.
Got it. Thanks, Kobe. Jeff, we're moving back to you. What's one key hybrid cloud data management takeaway you'd like the audience to know about?
All right. So Most businesses usually do a pretty good job with trying to make their environments properly secure, maybe even doing patching and everything regularly to try to upkeep. But where a lot of them actually lack on is focusing on their recoverability, protecting their backups properly, actually testing their DR. And those are very important strategies because I've been involved in and had to work on some recoverability for some really bad ransomware type items. And that's usually the key factor right there. Did they actually take the extra effort to make sure their recoverability processes were in place? Did they protect their backups to make sure that they were completely secure so that way they could actually recover appropriately? So spend the time focusing on your recoverability, make a good disaster recovery plan, and please test your recovery plan. Don't just assume it's going to work.
Understood. Thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, it looks like we're through our attendee questions, but I have a question I'd like you guys to weigh in on. And we'll start off with Progress DataDirect. If there's one thing you'd really like our attendees today to walk away keeping in mind, what would that be?
You want to take that, Todd, or you want me to?
Yeah. This is Todd Wright from Progress. I would say I think it's really obvious in this day and age that the need for data is important for BI and analytics programs. The more data that's being fed into these programs, the more successful they will be. That's been seen over and over again, including AI, of course. I would say just because you need more data does not exclude the need for security around that. So you need a solution that will easily connect to data and be able to feed it into your analytics and BI programs. But it also must be within your security practices and your compliance practices around GDPR. And it's really something that needs to go together. Aaron, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to that or something completely different, but now's your time.
I like to point out that using a hybrid data pipeline as a data hub really does a nice job of providing your users with a single source of truth to their data. They're not having to replicate it all over. They can get access to what they need, and you're also not having to distribute a bunch of different drivers to access that data. They are accessing it all through a single point of a single place and using a single set of credentials while you're able to protect your backend, like Todd said, for security reasons, and as well as for like throttling, so someone isn't issuing a query that might have a negative impact on the backend data source, as well as there's enhanced logging and even the ability to audit the SQL that people are passing to the database.
Understood. Thank you, Todd and Aaron. Kobe, how about you? One thing you'd really like our attendees to walk away keeping in mind?
I'm gonna plug somebody outside of all of this. A gentleman by the name of Gene Kim. I'm sure some of you have come across him before. I talked about him briefly, but he's the co-author of the Phoenix Project, which I thoroughly recommend, and also, of course, a contributor. I think he's co-author of the DevOps Handbook as well. But I would thoroughly recommend having a look at that and thinking about that in the context of DevOps test data management and the speed imperative. But also, I would have to second the thought about data security and the trade-offs associated with trying to achieve DevOps and CI/CD speed, but being held back by the need to ensure that data is kept compliant. And a lot of the time, sadly, people take alternative routes when they can't actually secure or make sure data is kept safe and compliant. And that really is the death knell of DevOps and CI/CD.
Understood. Last but not least, Jeff Duncan, your final thoughts. One key thing you'd really like our audience to walk away keeping in mind.
Sure. Many businesses, it seems like they, like I said, they focus on their databases, but they don't know where the data actually resides. So most database teams, they worry about the back end, make sure things are backed up appropriately and recovered. Most people, most dev teams and different departments, they know their data and their system, but a lot of these they get spread out a little bit, and they might not know the data from the system sitting right beside them. There usually, in most businesses, there needs to be somebody that actually knows where all your data resides, who owns what processes, and what data flows to where, and what data exists from end to end. So a lot of times that actually falls onto your BI teams and everything. So there needs to be someone, I think, that actually knows your data from end to end, knows where it exists, and is able to work on protecting that data, first of all, too. And you don't want to actually end up having sensitive data in places that you don't expect it to be. So make sure you have somebody and actually learn your environment and learn where your data exists from end to end, so that way you can protect it properly.
Absolutely. Well, I would like to give a huge thank you to our speakers today for coming on board and sharing their insights and expertise. Once again, Aaron Berg, Senior Solutions Engineer, and Todd Wright, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Progress DataDirect, Kobe Corsa, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Delphix, and Jeff Duncan, Global Practice Leader for SQL Server at DataVail. If you in attendance today would like to review this presentation or send it to a colleague, you can use the same URL that you used for today's live event. This will be archived. It'll likely be up tomorrow afternoon, and you will receive an email from us to notify you once the archive is posted. And if you would like a PDF of the deck, you can go to the handouts section on the console once the archive is live. Also, as I mentioned before, just for participating in today's event, you could win this $100 Amazon gift card. The winner will be announced on July 29th. We will let you know if you are the lucky viewer. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon.